Hi, good evening. I'm Pashmina P. from Hasmark Publishing International, and this evening I'll be interviewing Kathy Rose, who is in Los Angeles at the moment. Good morning, Kathy. How are you?
I'm great, Pashmina. How are you? Good to see you.
Yep, good to see you. We're so excited to hear about your book today.
Yeah, I just got a copy of it. Do you want to see it?
Yes, absolutely. Can we
Okay.
see it?
Here's a copy of the book. Yeah.
Wow. Is that your painting on the front, Kathy?
Yes, it is. It's one of my paintings. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Wonderful. Well, we're going to get to your book right now. And we want to know, Kathy, what is your book about, the Claiming Your Voice series, especially this first one that you're launching at the end of September?
My book is about empowering women and men to have courage to use their voice and claim their life. I want to see everybody become the hero of their life. They need to speak up. They need to talk about what they need and want in life. And I think so many people are held back, not feeling comfortable that they can express themselves.
How did you react when somebody took away your own voice, Kathy?
Well, it's actually the story of my life because I grew up in a family, a very loving family. I had a mother and a brother and father, but my father, I always felt like I had a hand on top of my head, controlling me. He was very strict and he wanted to be sure I did everything right. And so I was really told what to eat, how to eat, when to eat, and even what not to say. Because he used to say at the dining room table, Kathy, you know, women who talk too much will not get married. And I heard that over and over again. And I used to think, well, I want to get married. I want to have children. And so I think I'll just live below the radar, become invisible, and not create problems in my family. Well, what that did was to make me not have a voice and feel like I could express myself. I was very careful to give my opinion about things.
And what would be your advice of how to grow your voice, especially with quite a suppressed childhood? How do you grow your voice? How does one grow their voice?
Well, it's just practice, and it's just, you know, over and over again, getting in touch with learning to speak what you feel. And I know now when I get anxious right here, I can feel it, and I will then use my voice and say what I'm thinking. But it wasn't always that way. I remember when I was getting ready to go off to college, and my parents wanted me to stay in Los Angeles and live at home. And I was 18, and it was time for me to claim my voice and be independent. And so I went off to the University of California at Berkeley. And ironically, it was during the free speech movement at Berkeley where people were really using their voice. But that gave me the confidence to begin to speak up. But it didn't just come naturally. I had to work on it and feel comfortable with maybe confronting somebody or saying something people didn't agree with.
And what are some of the practices that you used, and how long did it take for you to be able to claim your own voice?
Well, as I said, it's really taken me my whole life. And after college, my parents wanted me to come home and live with them for a year. And I agreed to do that. But what was interesting was shortly after I got there, I got this chronic sore throat. And we went to at least 9 or 10 doctors. I had my tonsils out, everything, but I couldn't get rid of it. And I feel I wasn't able to use my voice. And I felt just really confined again. And I had a taste of freedom for 4 years of college. And then I came back to this, you know, this is how you do things. And I had to break out. I had to live. So I remember one of my very good friends was working in Washington, D.C. for a senator. And she said, Kathy, come on back to Washington. and, you know, I'm sure you can get a job. Well, the morning I left, it was after a year, and the morning I left, my father at the dining room table said, Kathy, you know, we disapprove of your going. And I said, I know, Dad, but I have to do this. And I'll never forget when I got on the airplane, I felt such freedom. I actually said to myself, if this plane goes down, it's okay because I'm free. I am breaking away. And I got to Washington, and you won't believe it, Pashmina. In 1 week, I got a fabulous job. I worked in a California senator's office. I had 3 great roommates and lived in Georgetown, where I wanted to live. And I had just the most amazing time there. And shortly thereafter, they had they asked me to be in this contest. It was the Cherry Blossom Festival. And I won and became the Cherry Blossom Princess from California. So in a period of maybe a month or two, I had this amazing life of, I loved my work, I was paying my rent, could buy my things I wanted, and then I was able to be in this parade and all of that went with it. So by claiming my voice, I began to own my life, and that was very important. And I was very healthy then. You know, I no longer had a sore throat.
That's, you know, it really reminds me of You Can Heal Your Life by Louise L. Hay, that your
Yes.
body does tell you when you are not listening to it or when you need to release. So that's so interesting that you've had a sore throat for so many weeks before you actually broke free and became the person that you wanted to be.
Right. It took a year. I mean, I was there for a year with a sore throat, and then overnight it went away, which is fascinating. To this day, I find that fascinating.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think that that intuition is our biggest guide, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
truly is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So besides wanting to claim your own voice, why did you write the book? What was the why, the burning desire of the why you wanted to write it?
My burning desire to write this book was to empower other women and men who feel shut down. And for the last 3 years, I have been teaching in a homeless shelter here in Los Angeles. And the women that come to that shelter have spent their life, you know, or their last year probably living in a car or a park, and they all come pregnant. And so they would be in my class, and my class became the most popular class in the homeless shelter. And it was I was teaching them how that they had to develop a no voice, and they had to become aware of their bodies when people were telling them things that weren't right. And, you know, and it was just amazing that they began to learn to speak up for themselves. And I found an interesting thing, Pashmina. Sometimes women can't do it for themselves, but they will do it for their children. If something's happening to their children, well, watch out. They're like a mama bear. And that's what these women who were in the homeless shelter, it was the first time that they had spoken up for themselves, because of course the man they were with or their father or whatever wanted them to get an abortion, and they didn't want to. They wanted to have these children and bring them up.
Wow, that's very inspiring work that you do, Kathy, and empowering other women, especially in times of crisis like that. That's really, you know, God's work. I'm so humbled to know you, and so, you know, impressed that you are able to connect with me. You know, we'd love for you to do this kind of work in Asia as well. You would empower so many women. It would be unbelievable how you
Well, thank you.
do that.
Because I really, you know what, Pashmina, was so interesting. I really knew how those women felt, because I had no voice. And then when I started to speak up, my life became my own. And so I really identified with a lot of them. So that's why I was able to help them.
And
It wasn't unfamiliar.
That does take a lot of motivation on your part too, because I mean, it is a two-way street. As a coach, you know, you're giving a lot of yourself to your mentees and to people who join your workshops and come to listen to you speak. What's next for your future? You know, what is it that you see with claiming your voice?
Well, I am so inspired by people that step up and have courage to use their voice because they then have a life. So, what I'm creating is the second book called Claiming Your Voice: Stories of Courage from Around the World. And there was an author several years ago named Jack Canfield who wrote a series of books called Chicken Soup for the Soul. And people wrote in their stories. So what I'm encouraging people to do is write an essay and send it to me, and we will put it in the book so that they can become an author and inspire other people. You're kind of passing it forward to other people. Yeah.
And are you looking for writers from all over the world? So you're looking for a global, global authors from.
Absolutely. I think some of the most inspiring stories come out of areas of where you live. I mean, people have overcome such adversity, and they need to have their stories told so they inspire other people.
What about some of your practices, like therapy? I know that you're an artist. You created that beautiful painting
Right.
behind you, and you created the covers of your book. Can you tell us, do you use some of those practices in your workshops?
Absolutely. I'm a trained art therapist. And so, what I would do at the end of every class, my classes usually ran about 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, depending on the day. And the first part of the day of the class, the first hour, was talking about all of, using your voice and not using your voice and how to use your voice and looking at it. And then the last hour was an art therapy. So I would have them draw what they envisioned their new life to look like. And um, and then the final was I would have them write I used to, and then but now I. And that was how the title to that last painting. And one of the most powerful paintings I ever got was this young girl. She was from France, and she was no more than probably 20 years old. And she was 7 months pregnant, and she landed in Los Angeles and slept for a week on the street, one of our more dangerous streets in LA, if you can believe it, 7 months pregnant. And by the last day, she had about 50 cents left in her pocket. But she wanted to save, this baby she was carrying. And so she went and asked a bus driver, is there a place that I could maybe go live? And he said, you need to go into McDonald's. They have free internet, and you can find some homeless shelters. So she did that, and he gave her. So then she went and got on a bus, and half an hour later, she was in Pasadena and went to a homeless shelter, and they took her in, and that's where I was teaching. So this is how I met her. And they took her in, and she lived there. She had her baby 2 months later, and she lived there for a year and a half. And she was in many of my classes. And then she was able to get a fabulous job at a bank. And then she became a bank manager and was able to raise her baby and has a car and apartment and everything. So she really was able, by using her voice, she was able to save her child and her life and created a beautiful new life for her and her child.
Wow, that's so beautiful, Kathy Rose.
Yeah,
Wow,
it really.
so
Yeah.
beautiful. So, can you tell your viewers, your listeners, your readers, how do we get a hold of you? Like if somebody wanted you to host a workshop, or somebody needed you to travel to a university to speak, or find out about your
Sure.
online courses, how do we find you?
Well, my website is www.claimingyourvoice.com, and my email is kathyrose@claimingyourvoice.net. So I encourage anybody to go to my website or email me at kathyrose@claimingyourvoice.net.
Thank you so much for your time, Kathy. And I feel so inspired after this video and speaking to you. And I can't wait to meet you really, really soon.
I look forward to meeting you too, Pashmina. Thank you so much.